Well, good morning. How are we? It's right over there. Great to see you all. We are in week 2 in our series, Summer in the Scriptures. How's summer started for y'all so far? Great. I've spent a lot of time on baseball fields, well, next to baseball fields. I had the pleasure of being in Oxnard all day yesterday, and we'll be back again later this afternoon to watch 8-year-olds play baseball. And so it's a lot of fun. I love it. Real quick, before we get into the text this morning, one more quick announcement. It's just a personal plea. Most months, we do something on the third Thursday of every month where all the fellas get together for a little happy hour at Santa Monica Brew Works. And what I have found is that when we don't mention it, it's me and Gino and like one other guy who likes to drink, and it's great. It is great. But when I make a plea and say, please don't let me drink alone with Gino this month, more people show up. And so this Thursday, third Thursday, Santa Monica Brew Works from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. It's super low-key. We just hang out and get to know each other a little bit. So if you want to come, that's this Thursday. Hopefully see you there. I know I'll see you there. All right. We are in Exodus chapter 3, end of chapter 2, beginning of chapter 3 today. And this series that we're doing is starting in Genesis and ending in Revelation. We are looking at the whole of the scriptures in the 92 days of summer. So by a show of hands, how many of you are tracking and are basically up to date? I love that. Well done. Nice work. Okay, so we, if you're new, we are going through 92 kind of the biggest passages in the scriptures. We started on June 1. We're going to finish on August 31st. And we got a booklet. We got an online digital version that's free. You can sign up for text messages. You can sign up for our Instagram. I shoot a video every day. It's a whole lot of me. It's too much me, my wife says. And but it's a good time. So if you want to track with us, you can grab a booklet on the back. We keep selling out, and I gotta be honest with you here. We keep selling out of these booklets, which is fun. But the very first run of the booklets, which I was very proud of, it's by far the longest thing I've ever written, and I was so excited to open up the box, and I look at it, and I show my daughter, and she laughs, and I was like, why are you laughing? This is my creation. It's my favorite baby of the 5. And she noticed that where it says summer in the scriptures on the front, it actually said summer in the scriptures. It's a typo on the cover of my first written document. So we've been hiding those in my office and did not want them to see the light of day. But we keep selling out. We can't print them fast enough. And so available for sale is the limited edition Summer in the Scriptures that you can grab on your way out if you would like. You can also get digital version for free on the website. So you can scan that QR code and get all the information about that. What I'm doing during the summer on Sundays is I'm preaching whatever the text happens to be on that Sunday. And so we are in Exodus chapters 2 and 3, the story of Moses. Now, last week we kind of talked a lot about the idea of what it means to believe in God and can we believe in God. And the story of the gospel is a crazy story, and it is admittedly challenging to embrace fully and believe, and especially to our modern intellectual minds. But I would say sometimes, and today is going to be more about the second, but sometimes it is harder to believe that God is with us than it is to believe that he exists. Right? Like there's a mental ability to go, yeah, I get it. I see enough of the evidence. I've experienced enough of it myself. I believe God exists. Sometimes it's harder to believe that God is near, that he remembers us, that he is present with us, and that he is working in our lives. Right? So if you know the story of Israel, at the end of Genesis, they are in Egypt. Joseph had been sold into slavery by his brothers, but through a series of events had risen to great prominence, worked for the Pharaoh in Egypt, and brought all of his family there, brought all of what was the Israelites at that time there to Egypt, and they flourished. Many, 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 many years, probably 300 to 350 years, have passed since the end of Genesis. So between Genesis 50 and Exodus 1 is about 300 to 350 years, and a lot has happened. Israel has grown in the process of that. The Pharaoh that knew Joseph died, and pharaohs and pharaohs and pharaohs have followed him to the point that they kind of forgot who Joseph was, why Israel was there. As Israel continues to grow, the Pharaoh begins to feel threatened by Israel and threatened that they will eventually kind of overcome the Egyptians. So this most recent Pharaoh is a really bad guy, one of the most evil characters in the whole Bible. And he orders that all the firstborn sons of the Israelites be killed to kind of tamp down their growth and potential for an insurrection. And so thousands and thousands and thousands of firstborn children are killed in this process, but many of the Hebrew midwives kind of rebel against Pharaoh. They trust God, and so they save as many of these children as they can. Moses being one of them. Moses is born. He is hidden by his mother as long as she is able. It's hard to hide a newborn for too long. And instead of giving Moses up, she actually puts Moses, some of you may be familiar with the story, puts Moses in a little basket, floats him down the river, kind of praying to God, hoping for the best, see what happens. And Moses is discovered by the daughter of the Pharaoh. So the daughter of the Pharaoh brings baby Moses into her home and then tells one of her servants, hey, go find one of those Hebrew midwives to be able to care for this child. That woman goes and finds Moses' mom, and so she actually gets to raise Moses, but in Pharaoh's home. Moses grows up. We don't hear much about who he is or how he grows up, but he grows up in Pharaoh's palace and one day sees an Egyptian man beating a Hebrew man, intervenes in the process, kills the Egyptian man, hides the murder, thinks everything's cool. A couple days later, he sees two Hebrews fighting with each other, tries to break it up. They go, oh, what are you going to do? Murder us like you did the Egyptian guy? He goes, oh no, my secret's out, and he flees. He runs to a place called Midian to hide out because Pharaoh finds out that he'd killed an Egyptian and wants to kill him. Got all that? That's the previously in Israel, kind of version of this, okay? So all of that brings us to Exodus chapter 2, and we're going to start in verse 23, okay? So now we're probably 400 years or so from the end of Genesis 50. It says this, during these many days, the king of Egypt died, another Pharaoh dies, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God. God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, great name. The priest, it's funny to me, you get all these Hezekiahs and Ezekiels, and then you're like, and then there was a Jethro. You're like, that would have been my dude. The priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness, came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. Now, let's start at the beginning here. God sees the people of Israel down in Egypt, enslaved, being treated brutally, many of their firstborn sons being killed, and it says, God remembered. Now, this does not mean, this is a common phrase in the Old Testament. It says, God remembered, God. This is not to say God's in heaven playing, spades or something with the angels. Then it was like, Israel, totally forgot about those dudes. What's going on with them? And then looks down and they're enslaved. He's like, my bad. That is not what's happening. When it says God remembers, what it means is God is about to act. Okay? God always acts out of his promises. He acts out of his character. And so when the scriptures say God remembers, what it's about to describe is God's action in relationship to his covenant. So it says, God remembers the promises that he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He remembered that God is the Israelites' God and that he has made promises to preserve them and to help them flourish. And so he begins to act. But I want us to see that this is the pattern, not just in Exodus 2, but this is the pattern throughout Scripture. From the very beginning, the move is always God acts, we respond. Always, 100% of the time. God acts in creation, we respond. God acts in his commands, we respond in obedience. God acts in the redemption and sending Jesus, we respond in faith. God sees Israel in slavery, God acts first, and then the people respond. That is always the pattern. God always moves first. It's going to be important because there's a temptation in a story like this and many others to make the story about Moses, right? We can read a story like this and go, wow, Moses, what faith Moses had. Moses went and saved Israel from slavery. Spoiler alert, right? We can look at this and go, wow, God must have chosen Moses because Moses is the man, and maybe like I want to be the man. Maybe there's a big problem in my life and I could be the solution for that problem like Moses was the solution to the Israel in slavery problem. But that is not the story that we are reading. That is never the story that the Bible tells. What I love about the Bible is a great many things. One of them is there is no pretense about the depravity of the men and women in the Bible. Like the heroes of the faith, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Noah, Moses, all these dudes, the Bible tells all of the dirt behind all of them. Like this last week, we read the story of Noah. Right? And Noah, it says that Noah found favor in the eyes of God. There was so much evil in the world, but God chose Noah. And they're like, wow, Noah must have been awesome. And then you got the whole ark story. And then what happens right after the ark story? Go back and read it, but not to your kids, because it's gross. Noah's gross, right? Like Noah makes some very bad decisions right after the ark part. The Bible never plays around with like, well, the humans were awesome, and that's why God chose them. It's never it. And that's not it with Moses. God comes to Moses because God is great. God remembers his covenant. And God chooses Moses, as we'll see, in part to show how great God is, not Moses. This is one of those kind of pillar moments in all of the scriptures because of where it begins and the kind of structure that it sets up, the expectation that this sets up for the way in which we work with God. And this is so important because so often, I think, in our culture, we tell ourselves this story that God uses people because they're strong, because they're impressive, because they're competent, fearless, extra spiritual, polished, whatever it is. And so we think, okay, if I can be that kind of person, then maybe God will use me. And yet the pattern over and over and over and over and over is God often, it seems, intentionally chooses people with major flaws in order to accomplish what he will, so that nobody is under any delusion that it was because this guy's great that this thing happened. What you find out later in the story, that Moses was a stutterer, had a major speech impediment. So it's not like God looked out over all the Israelites and like, who is the best speaker? Who could stand before Pharaoh and command the room and be maybe kind of tall and you know, pretty strong and maybe a little bald, but still good looking and like really own Pharaoh in a moment like that? No, none of that. He goes, well, who's the guy who can't really talk straight? Let's send him in front of the most powerful human being on earth at the moment and command him to let this horde of slaves go free. Let's pick that guy. Okay, this is the pattern over and over and over. Moses is not the hero of the story. Abraham wasn't the hero of the story. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, none of these dudes are the hero of the story. From the very beginning, God is the hero of the story. So as you kind of go through this, we read through the rest of the narrative, just have that in mind. It's never Moses, it's always God. because at one point it's going to be about you. Right? Like we're going to be tempted to think, okay, there's this big problem to solve in my life. I think I can do it. I think I am the solution to this major problem. I think God has chosen me. And that doesn't mean God hasn't called you to be a solution in some problem. It's not that God hasn't called you to work powerfully in the world. He probably has. But he didn't choose you because of you. He's using you because of him. He is the power. He is the ability. He is the strength. He has chosen to allow you to be a part of this. So let's from the very beginning go, hey, if it wasn't about Abraham, if it wasn't about Moses, if it wasn't about David, if it wasn't about Solomon, if it wasn't about all these guys, it's probably also not about you. So let's establish that at the beginning. Okay? So God remembers, begins to move through Moses. Verse 4, when the Lord saw that Moses, turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. He said, here I am. Then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. Now, many don't know this, but this is actually the verse that established the first Christian coffee shop. So keep that in mind. When Moses comes near to God, God says, wait. Take your sandals off your feet, because the place that you're standing is holy ground. This is not a casual moment between God and Moses. This is not Moses walking through the desert, seeing a thing, being like, oh, hey, what's up? And God's like, hey, what's up, bro? And like, it's not that. He's walking through the desert. He sees a bush on fire out of nowhere. It's burning, but not being burned up. And I love the kind of casualness around how Moses writes this. He goes, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. Who's he talking to? It's him and sheep. Like, is he like, hey, sheepy, let's go check this out. It's weird, right? That's the stuff that makes pastors laugh. He comes near. God goes, whoa. Hold up, stop, take off your sandals. You're on holy ground. He doesn't say, Moses, come here, buddy, let's talk. I got an idea. Maybe we can partner together. You're my guy. No. He establishes the difference between him and Moses. Now, what is it that makes the ground holy? Is it because the dirt itself is special? No. Is it because that patch of wilderness had some magical quality? Not at all. The ground is holy because God is there. Wherever God is, it is holy. Holy literally just means set apart, different for a purpose. Wherever God is, that is holy. The presence of God is significant and weighty and meaningful, and it is never casual. And this is where I think we need to recover something that maybe our age has lost in a completely understandable desire to make God accessible, and perhaps because you grew up in a church or in a tradition or in a generation where God was very other, and it was like, okay, you got to dress up, you got to look right, you got to do it right. In order to be in the presence of God, you got to prepare yourself to be worthy for the presence of God. And we go, well, that isn't captured at all, but we've kind of swung the pendulum to where God is now, we've like brought him down to our level where we're like, well, he's my guy. He's my he's my partner. He's my coach. We're in this together. We go, well, that doesn't quite get it either, because God is God and you are not. And so there's this element that the scriptures speak about a lot, which is the fear of God, which I think we've largely lost. In an understandable desire, a project to kind of break down some of these walls of accessibility with God, we've kind of made God casual and like he's our bro, when he is not our bro. He is the creator and sustainer of the universe. And so God is establishing, hey, I'm going to use you. I want to call you to myself, Moses, but I want you to remember that I am holy, I am powerful, I am not like you. I am near, but not casual. I am gracious, but not controllable. I speak and creation exists. I judge nations. I deliver slaves. I burn the bush without consuming it. And Moses is asked to acknowledge that by taking off his sandals. Before God can send Moses, he has to humble Moses. He has to establish who Moses is and who Moses isn't. Before Moses can go speak to Pharaoh, he has to learn where he stands before God, and that order matters. That order matters. Because it's different to go stand before Pharaoh thinking you were chosen for a reason because you're the man. And to stand before Moses knowing like I am or stand before Pharaoh knowing I am simply the mouthpiece of the creator of the universe. It's different. So as God calls us to things, there's a major difference between going, God's called me to this, I know it because he equipped me to this for this, and I'm the one who can do this, and I'm the only one that can do this, and going, no, God's called me to this, which means God's going to somehow mysteriously work through my inability and my weakness to accomplish his ends. The posture is wildly different there. First, we have to acknowledge God as God, and I am not, and then say to God, here am I, use me, send me. Okay, that's not where it ends. Verse 6. God said to Moses, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. This is a title that God uses of himself, or a description that God uses of himself a lot in the Old Testament. To say, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is not just a religious title, but it is a story being told through a title. God is saying, Moses, I am not a new God. I'm not making this up as I go. I am the God who made promises generations before you were born. I am the God who called Abraham. I am the God who sustained Isaac. I am the God who wrestled with Jacob. I am the God who brought Joseph to Egypt in the first place. I am the God who has been working through this whole story even when no one else could see it. I have been in charge this whole time. God identifies himself by his covenant faithfulness. And that means that Moses' life is not floating in random circumstances. We're not going to just kind of try this out. Israel's suffering is not meaningless. It's not like this God has called Moses, and Moses looking at him going, I don't know if he can do it. I don't know if he's up to the challenge. I don't know if you guys are basketball fans at all, but it was a pretty cool game last night. I don't know if you saw it. And man, the difference between the Knicks and the Spurs. Did anybody, you guys tracking with me? Show of hands. Okay, good. I'm just an illustration for like 7 people. The difference between the Knicks and the Spurs in this series was so obvious in the fourth quarter. The Spurs blew a 29-point lead and a 15-point lead in this series. When push came to shove, when something needed to get done, the ball went to Jalen Brunson's hand, and he went, I got this. I've been here before. I've done it before. I know what to do. Trust me. And some of you may not know this, but Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges all won a national championship together at Villanova in 2016. Those same 3 guys now just won an NBA title together for the New York Knicks 10 years later. It's the first time that's ever happened. I got to imagine there's a moment on the court in the waning minutes of these NBA Finals games where Brunson and Bridges and Hart look at each other and go, we got this. We did this before. We've been here before. We've won before. We know how to do this. And meanwhile, Wemby and all the rest of them are like, hey, we should like score points and stuff, right? Like they don't know what to do. You could see them crumble in the moment because they've never been there before. God, in a way, is telling Moses, I've been here before. I've been through this with Abraham. I've been through this with Isaac. I've been through it with Jacob. I was with Joseph. Joseph, if you remember, Moses, was sold into slavery and by my hand became the second most powerful person in Egypt, even though he was a Jew. So I got this, man. I got this. So even when we have this obstacle in our life or some calling in our life, some problem that God goes, hey, I'm going to work through you to solve this problem. And we go, man, I don't know if we can do this. God goes, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the God who has been here before. I am the God who has done this before, not only in human history, but you know I have done this in your life before. And we forget. One of the reasons I think God so often identifies himself by what he has done in the past is because, I don't know about you, but me, every time a new problem comes up, I go, oh my gosh, how in the world are we going to solve this problem? As if God hasn't solved greater problems in my own life like that day. But the next one's insurmountable. So God over and over and over and over reminds the people, we've been through this before. I mean, what we're about to learn about in these next couple of days, he is going to reference back to the Exodus for it's like one of those things, you know, when you got a buddy who helped you out one time and you never hear the end of it? Like, that's kind of God, where he's like, remember when I pulled you out of slavery in Egypt? And the Jews are like, dude, it's 2026, all right, it's been a minute, right? So but it's a reminder, it's a remembering that God shows up, and he always has, and he's always taken care of his people. All right. So he establishes his bona fides with Moses, and then he gives them the plan. Verse 7. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings. I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? He said, but I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you, that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, if I come to the people in Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. So God tells Moses the plan. He says, I'm going to send you, you're going to go down, you're going to stand before Pharaoh, and you're going to tell him, and we've all said it in Sunday school, if you grew up in Sunday school, let my people go, right? You've seen Prince of Egypt or whatever. You can picture the moment that Moses with his staff waddles in, tells the Pharaoh, let my people go. That's the plan. I want us to notice a part here because I want to press it not just into your mind but into your heart. That God starts by saying, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and I have heard their cry. I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them. I want you to know God knows your sufferings. God knows your cries. Even when you have tried to hide your tears from your family, he has seen them. Even when you have stuffed the emotion deep because you know that you just got to push through, he sees it. And over, for a God that is as powerful and strong and mighty as God is, as sovereign as he is, he sure does remind us a lot that he sees our suffering, that he sees our pain, that he is with us in it. And maybe it doesn't feel like that. Maybe you feel alone. Maybe you wonder if the thing you're carrying is being carried by anyone else. God says over and over and over, he sees, he hears, he understands, and he's with you. God tells Moses, I have come down to deliver them. that God, the movement of God, the conviction of God, always the action of God is to move towards his people to save them. That he doesn't sit in heaven expecting us to get ourselves together to get up to him. He says here and then says most ultimately in Jesus, I have come down to them. God is a pursuing God. He is a seeing God and a pursuing God. He is a knowing God and an acting God. He is not a distant, far-off God. He is a God that even though he is God and you are not, he bridges that gap to be with you. I have come down to rescue my people. And I got to be honest, I appreciate Moses' honesty here. God lays out this plan and Moses' response is like, sweet, let's go. That would have been my response. I would have been terrified. I would have felt overwhelmed. And I would have gone like, great, let's go. Because I want to be capable and I want to be strong and I want to be a leader and all those things. And I would never want God to see my vulnerability and my weakness and my fear. So I'd been like, let's go. Come on, let's go. Why are we waiting? Let's go. Come on, right now. Moses goes, me? Me? You want me to stand before Pharaoh? You want me to deliver this news to Pharaoh? But notice God's response to Moses. God does not say, come on, Moses, believe in yourself. You are enough. Just tap into the God within you, Moses. Tap into that lion inside you, buddy. None of that. He goes, no, I know. God goes, here's the plan. Moses goes, I don't know if I'm the guy. He goes, oh, no, you're not the guy. I'm the guy. Because I will be there with you. There's no moment where God tries to reassure Moses that, no, you're enough, dude. You're capable. You got this, man. He goes, no, I got this. I'm glad you're going to be there. Like, I want you to see what I'm about to do. But this is my thing. The answer to Moses' inadequacy is not Moses' hidden greatness. The answer is God's presence. And God understands the situation. God says Pharaoh is only going to be compelled by a mighty hand. Like, God's not naive to the challenge before him. Like, he goes, it's not like you're just going to walk in and like convince him to let all his slaves go. Like, he's going to have to be compelled by a mighty hand. It's just a tiny bit of smack talk, right? Because God's like, no. He's going to need to be compelled by a mighty hand, you know? Like, he's got plans. And if you know the end of the story, that is exactly what happens. God brings all of the might of his hand against Pharaoh. So there's no sense in which this is a Moses solution. This is a God solution that Moses gets to be a part of. So, here's a question for us. What obstacle in your life requires the mighty hand of God? What is an obstacle in your life? What is the situation that you're facing? Maybe something now that you're in the midst of, maybe something that's on the horizon. Maybe you're dealing with the aftermath of something that has recently happened to you. That you go, I don't know that I can handle this. I don't know if I got this. Because when problems come into my life, my first instinct is, okay, I got this. And then if I'm just a little bit humble, I go, okay, who can I find to handle this for me? And sometimes there are obstacles so great in our life that we do not have the confidence to be able to tackle it, and we don't know anybody who can. And I am convinced completely that God intentionally brings moments like that into our lives, obstacles, challenges, pain, and suffering into our lives on purpose to show us our own limitations. Because we can easily become convinced that we can handle most of what this world throws at us, or we know a guy. And so every once in a while, God brings stuff into our life that we go, I don't know a guy who can handle this. And I know some bad guys, but this is big. I don't know what that obstacle is for you. I don't know what challenge you're facing, but what requires the mighty hand of God? Not a little advice, not a minor adjustment, not better calendar management, not a productivity hack, but major movement of God. Maybe it is a pattern of sin that has had its claws in you for years. Maybe it's bitterness that you can't seem to put down. Maybe it's fear about your kids. Maybe it's a marriage that feels cold. Maybe it's financial pressure. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's the future of your family or the future of the church or the future of someone you love. Maybe it is simply the fact that you're tired and you do not know how much longer you can keep carrying what you're carrying. Exodus does not give us a small God for small problems. Exodus is one of the bigger problems we would ever face. And it gives us a burning bush. It gives us the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God who hears groaning, the God who remembers his covenant, the God who sees, the God who knows, the God who comes down, the God who delivers by a mighty hand. So, what does this mean? What do we do? Whenever I put together a sermon, I try to think like, why would this matter on a Tuesday morning? Because like Sunday, you guys go, great, best sermon I've ever heard. And by Sunday afternoon, you're napping. And so Tuesday morning, reality hits. And how does this matter? Because inevitably, you are going to face something that your first instinct will likely be, I got this. And then maybe you will realize, I don't got this, and nobody else around me can get this. I need God for this. And I think part of growing in your faith, part of Christian maturity, is realizing that the list of things you can't handle, which maybe you think is small, is actually much, much bigger than you thought it was. And part of growing in our faith is acknowledging more and more and more and more how much we need God for most of what's happening in our lives. In fact, all of it. So that list grows, actually, as we get bigger. We are more dependent on God as we mature. So what happens when we are faced with those kind of challenges? One, when you fear or despair, preach this to yourself. God knows. God cares, God acts. God knows, God cares, God acts. I don't know about you, but I have little sayings that I say to myself to remind myself of things that I want to remember, of things I want to believe, that my natural inclination is to forget. This is one of those things. God knows about this, God cares about this, and God will act in this. And I say it and say it and say it until my soul starts to believe it. Because sometimes we just need to be reminded of things. God knows your situation is not hidden from him. He knows the pain. He knows what you're facing. God cares. He is not indifferent to your suffering. He is not cold. He is not distracted. He heard Israel's groaning and he hears yours. And God acts. Unfortunately, not always on my schedule. Not always in the way that I would want. But he remembers and he acts. Second, acknowledge the holy ground. Do not rush into God's presence like he is lucky to have your attention. Do not reduce him to a consultant. Do not treat him as your co-pilot. He is God, you are not. So take off your sandals, bow your heart, recover some sense of reverence in your relationship with him. Let God be holy again in your imagination. Part of what that does is it actually makes God more awesome to you. By acknowledging that God is God and you are not, he grows not in reality but in your heart. He grows. And as God grows, you shrink by comparison and begin to recognize, wow, how did I ever think I could handle this when I have access to him who can handle everything? Third, remember what God has done. God told Moses, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And we can say even more than that. We've got more of the story. He's not only the God who called Abraham, he's the God who rescued Israel, the God that brought them through the sea, the God who gave his law, the God who sent the prophets, the God who took on flesh in Jesus Christ, the God who went to the cross, the God who rose from the dead, the God who poured out his Spirit, the God who is building his church, the God who will make all things new. We don't have to generate faith out of thin air. We just have to remember the ways in which God has already acted. And faith blooms in our hearts. 4, confess your limits and choose humility. If you do these first 3 things and bask in the presence of the greatness of God, it is really not hard to acknowledge your limits and choose humility. Moses' answer to God to say, "Who am I?" was the right question, as long as it doesn't become an excuse for inaction. Because sometimes there are things happening in our life, God calls us to act, and we go, gosh, I don't know if I could do that. And so there's this kind of turning point where we go, if that humility of like, I don't know that I could accomplish that, causes us to depend on God, great. But if it causes us to go, well, I can't do it, so someone else is going to have to do it, not great. Humility should not cause passivity, but faith. There is a faithful way to say, who am I? To say, who am I? I am not God. Who am I? I cannot save myself. Who am I? I cannot control Pharaoh. Who am I? I cannot force outcomes. Who am I? I am limited, weak, and dependent. But none of that matters because God will be with me. Humility is not paralysis. Humility is dependence. Number 5, then ask God to use his mighty hand and his wisdom. Not just his power, his wisdom. Because there's a way in which we can kind of try to wield the power of God to our own ends, where we go, okay, I know this situation. Here's how I would solve it. Now I pray, God, solve it that way. What we ought to pray is, God, that's the problem. I kind of think it could be solved this way, but I trust your wisdom first and then your power to execute your wisdom. That is humility. That is submission, not just to the power of God, but to the wisdom of God as well. So we pray like this: Lord, I need your mighty hand. I cannot fix this by myself. I cannot deliver myself. I cannot make this happen, but I also need your wisdom. Do this your way. Do this in your timing. Shape me while I wait. Keep me faithful while I do not understand. And then, the hardest part of all, wait. And then ask again. And then wait. And then ask again. And then wait. And remember, as a parent, for those of you who are parents, how annoying it is when your kids ask and ask and ask and ask and ask. It's summertime. My kids are around always now. And they ask and they ask and they each ask. And there's 5 of them. So it's so many asks. And yet, Jesus tells us to be exactly like those kids. He is so much more patient than I am. He invites our requests. He invites our questions. He invites the relentlessness that is actually a reflection of dependence. Kids know their limits. They know who's in charge, and so they come to you to tie their shoes, to feed them, to clothe them, to hug them, because they know they need it from you. You can take a lesson from them. I want us to see one more thing, and then we'll get out of here. In verse 13, Moses says to God, if I come to the people of Israel and I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of God, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt, and I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land that I have set before you. God is God, and he is near you. In Christ, he has won the ultimate battle for you that you could have never won yourself. I've been in church all my life. And there are times in which I can read these stories and I get all the point, and I can even preach these stories and still not let it really wreck my heart on a week-to-week basis or ever let it really get after my heart. Like, think of the claim of Christianity. Think of what is being offered to us here. That God repeatedly says, I am that I am. I am God and you are not. That there is this unmatched supremacy, unmatched power, unmatched sovereignty, who also says, I see you, I am with you, I am near you, I see your tears, I hear your groaning, I want to know you, I want you to know me, I will act on your behalf. Those two things together are on offer to you today and every day. And for some of you in this room, today is a decision day. And in some ways, every single day is a decision day. But I want to call you to a decision today. For some of you, that decision is like, okay, I'm in for the very first time. I want this. I want this unbelievably powerful, supreme God who actually knows me, loves me, and wants to be with me and act on my behalf, who demonstrated both of those things on the cross. The love and sacrifice that Jesus demonstrated for us by dying for us, and then the great power that God showed us by overcoming Satan, sin, and death in the resurrection. That we go, I want that. Give me some of that. Maybe that's your decision today. But man, every single one of us has a decision today. Whether or not we are going to acknowledge that God is God and we are not. And to live out of that truth every day. To wake up in the morning, to praise him, to worship him, to go, thank you that you woke me up. My alarm helped, but you woke me up. I am alive because of you. I exist because of you. And because I exist because of you, I also exist for you. That you can actually live life with God every day. That you can choose to be aware of the presence of God. That you can be on holy ground every day, no matter what, walking in the presence of God every day. It doesn't require a burning bush. The Spirit of God is in us. We can choose that every day, or we can choose to wake up and kind of go, yeah, and just go on with our day and do our business and have our things and do all the distractions and have all the life and do whatever we want and completely disregard the reality that the creator, sustainer, and savior of the universe loves you, wants to walk with you, wants to act on your behalf, wants to be near you, that he sees you. And what would life look like minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, if we were conscious of that all the time? I think stories like this are God's way of reminding us of what is on offer to us. We see these crazy moments of burning bush and God grabbing Moses' attention, and then he tells him the most ordinary things. I am with you. I know you. I love you. I will act on your behalf. The same things he says over and over and over to us. It doesn't require a burning bush. It can just be us waking up in the morning and choosing to remember that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the God of you as well. And what he has done for the Israelites throughout the Old Testament, it has culminated in what he has accomplished for you on the cross, and you can walk in that. And you can choose that this day, and you can choose that tomorrow, and you can choose that on Tuesday morning. And it will change your life. Change your life. Let's pray. Jesus, sometimes it does require burning bushes to get our attention. But I wish it didn't. I wish we could see you in the face of our spouse, the face of our children, the ocean, our backyard. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, that we would be conscious of your creative work, your sustaining work, your saving work, your loving work at all times and in all ways. I'm sorry that we are sometimes so stubborn that you have to bring pain and suffering and loss into our lives. I'm sorry that when you bring blessing and goodness into our lives, we often see the blessing and miss the one who gave the blessing. Lord, open our eyes to see you in everything around us, that you have given us gift after gift after gift, but none greater than your presence. Lord, there are some in this room that are facing major problems, major obstacles, major suffering, major pain. The kinds of things that obviously require a mighty hand. And Lord, I pray that you would move your mighty hand in their lives in such unmistakable ways that they would see you at work and be forced to acknowledge your love and power. That you would grab our attention, Lord. And Lord, I pray that you would reveal yourself also in just very plain ways, ordinary ways. And teach our hearts, teach our eyes to be able to see you all around us, see our need for you, our dependence upon you, and that we would lean into that dependence day after day after day. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.